Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wahdahu. Wassalatu wassalam ala man la nabiyya ba'dahu. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Wa man tamassaka bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din. Wa sallama tasliman kathira amma ba'd. As we continue in this tremendous treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam Taymiyyah al-Harrani Dimashqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. The time now is 7:16 p.m. By the time now, excuse me everyone, 7:14 p.m. 29th of Muharram, the year 1445, which today's date is Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023 of the Gregorian calendar. And as we continue in this tremendous treatise by the great Imam, we were discussing the affair of some of the people of Tasawwuf, of who was affected by some of the Tasawwuf of the past, even though you'll find that some of the scholars who Shaykh al-Islam mentioned utilize their statements against those who are in opposition to the correct belief, especially in regards to the matters connected with al-asma' wa-sifat. And you'll find how a lot of them, in this regard, those who have been given knowledge of the Kitab and Sunnah, how their knowledge was sound, and how Shaykh al-Islam, like we said, utilized their statements against their own followers, because you'll find that the followers revered these scholars, revered the likes of, for example, Fudayl al-Iyad, rahimahullah, even though he had knowledge of the Kitab and Sunnah, rahimahullah. And from them, like we talked about last class, is the individual, or rather from the scholars of the past, I should say the individual, who Shaykh al-Islam mentioned from the scholars of the past who had tasawwuf, but like we said, he was revered by them, and he had sound creed in regard of al-asma' wa-sifat. And he did not adopt the ideologies of hulul or ittihad. Hulul meaning that Allah became one with the creation, or ittihad, which means that Allah became unified with the creation. As you'll find that the majority of the people of Tasawwuf had adopted this type of corrupt beliefs, or these perverted beliefs, and as a result of it, they went astray. However, continuing what Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, that Shaykh al-Islam conveyed his statement, Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, you'll find that he was refuting those who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have those names and characteristics that befit Him, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't speak, rather it's metaphoric speech, as you'll find that some of the deviant ideologies believe, that you'll find that he was in total opposition. Rather, you'll find that he confirmed the correct belief of all the prophets. Because you'll find, that the prophets believed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had these names and attributes. As you'll find, all of the prophets unanimously believed that Allah was above, and that Allah deserved to be worshipped, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has those names and characteristics that befit Him, and that Allah speaks. All of the prophets believe that. All of the prophets believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks with a voice and letters. And you'll find that Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, that he mentions, it says, as we'll talk about the statement. Last class we said, for example, if everyone looks in their book, the statement of Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, where he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Musa, الذي كلم موسى تكليما وأراه من آياته فسمع موسى كلام الله لأنه قربه نجيا فخاطبه حتى سمع كلامه سماعا حقيقيا They said that Allah spoke to Musa definitely, a real speech. It wasn't metaphoric, it was real speech. It was done with voice and letters. And you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in so many ayat in this book that Musa asked Allah a question and Allah responded to it. For example, the ayat which comes from Surah Al-A'raf that we mentioned last class, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions when the appointed time had occurred between him and Musa, and that the speech didn't take place until Musa came to that place. It says, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا فَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. Now listen to what did Musa say to his Lord? قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. Oh my Lord, let me look to you. Let me see you. He said, لَن تَرَانِي. Musa, you won't see me in this dunya. Allah responded to it, to let you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heard the request of Musa, completely understood what Musa said, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied to Musa, you will not see me in this dunya. However, انظر إلى الجبل فإن استقر مكانه فسوف تراني. However, look to the mountain, and if the mountain is stable, then you would have seen me. And we know the rest of the ayats that we mentioned last class, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala manifested him or himself, or his majesty to the mountain, then it disintegrated. And Musa fell out unconscious. We talked about this last class, everyone. That this was the affair of what we mentioned briefly last class, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks with a speech, with a voice, and with letters that are understood. So let's keep going. Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, he goes on to say, rahimahullah. Then he goes on to say, everyone, وَأَرَاهُ مِنْ آيَاتِهِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed Musa of his signs. And Musa heard the speech of Allah, and he brought him close, لِأَنَّهُ قَرَّبَهُ نَجِيهًا, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him close for that what? That close talk, or that close speech in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him close and spoke to him in seclusion. تَقَدَّسَ أَن يَكُونَ كَلَامُهُ مَخْلُوقًا أَوْ مُحْدَثًا. Now this is where we stopped at last class. So let's talk about where we stopped. So what did it say, everyone? So we spoke last class, and this is where we stopped at. We said the affair of the speech of Allah. Number one, we said it's a characteristic of Allah's essence. It's characteristic of Allah's that, and it's asl. بِاعْتِبَارِ أَصْلِ الْكَلَامِ. And take in consideration the origin of speech, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always had the ability to speak. And we know ability is from his what? From his essence. In addition to what we say that his speech, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking, is a characteristic of his essence. However, when Allah speaks, it's connected with his will and his ability. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks at a time. He speaks at a time, and he spoke to Musa at a time, and he revealed his books to the prophets at a specific time. We talked about last class, just an example of what we just mentioned here. If you go back to the ayat that we just said a moment ago, that says فَلَمَّا, lamma. In Arabic language, the word lamma means a time. When Musa came to our place where we meet, or that Allah has sent the meeting to meet Musa, your Lord spoke to him. Meaning that the speech didn't take place until Musa came to that what? Until that place and that appointed time that Allah has set to meet Musa. Based upon the ideologies of the people bid'ah, from the Mu'tazila and other than them, they say no, Allah does not do it at a time, it was already done. It happened all at once. And that it did not happen at a specific time. So that you'll find that this is what their claim is, which is also what? Nullified. The speech of Allah is a characteristic of Allah's essence, and it's a characteristic of Allah's actions. Take consideration what the time when it happens, the time that it happens, and the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses to speak to that prophet at that particular time, and the books that Allah revealed. The books that Allah revealed at a particular time is not like the book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, the Injil. It's not like how He revealed the Quran. They're two separate books, and they were revealed at two separate what? There were two separate times, to two separate ummah, to two separate nations. As we know that the Injil was revealed to the Yahud. It was revealed to Bani Israel. Whereas the Quran was revealed to who? All of creation. And it was revealed to what? As the final revelation to all humanity. That is what we mentioned in brief. But let's now take it slow again from last class. So let's break it down. So you'll find that all of the prophets believe that Allah speaks. And even the angels believe that Allah speaks. You'll find that the angels even heard Allah's voice. For example, in the ayah, it comes in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the angel, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قالوا أتجعل فيها ما يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. Hence that your Lord, that He said to the angels, verily I'm going to make a Khalifa in the earth. So Surah Al-Baqarah. So notice that the angels understood what Allah said. They replied. What did they say? أتجعل فيها ما يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. So the angels replied. What did they say? Will you make in it one who will cause corruption and shed and fall into bloodshed, killing innocent lives? And we glorify your praise. وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. And we magnify or glorify you, or we venerate you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to them. I know what you do not know. So the angels here heard what, everyone? Allah's voice. And they heard what? Letters. It was done with words, and it was done with what? A voice and letters. Harf was sawt. And you'll find that is from the great books, from the aqidah of those of the past. The great Imam Abu Nasr al-Imam al-Sijzi, who died in, I think, because of Mama 333 of the Hijrah. And he has a tremendous book entitled Ar-Radd ala man ankara al-harf was-sawt, the refutation against those who reject that Allah speaks with a voice and letters. And he wrote a tremendous treatise about this matter, establishing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks with a voice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the angels with, and some of the prophets and messengers. And the books that was revealed was also considered the speech of Allah. That Allah revealed to some of the prophets, those books that were given to them, which is also considered His speech. This is what we'll break down right now, inshallah. طيب. What did we say last class, everyone? We said that the voice, the speech of Allah is not created. Right, everyone? Like, you have the speech of Allah, as I mentioned this last class. You have the speech of Allah, in which Allah addressed the prophets, or some of the prophets. Right, everyone? For example, the ayat that came about Musa. The ayats that came, for example, about a prophet Nuh. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemned Nuh about his son. And some of the other prophets, Prophet Ibrahim. That Prophet Ibrahim, Abu al-Anbiya, heard the voice of Allah. And Prophet Musa. And the Prophet ﷺ being the greatest of all of them. As the Prophet ﷺ heard Allah's voice in a manner that none of the prophets and the messengers heard His voice. How? The Prophet ﷺ journeyed above the heavens and heard Allah's voice. That's greater than all of the prophets and the messengers of what they were given. Way more in depth. Way on a higher level. طيب. That affair When the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, as he heard the voice of Allah also, Prophet Musa, and the other prophets, of course. You have two types of speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have the speech in which He addressed the prophets in those certain occasions. Like I just gave the example with Musa. When Allah set the time, the appointed time with Musa, and your Lord spoke to him. And what did Musa say? Oh my Lord, let me look at you. That type of speech was for Prophet Musa. You understand, everyone? Then you have the speech of Allah, which is in those books that Allah revealed. That everyone what? That everyone reads. Right now, the Quran, which is the speech of Allah. The speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is in the Quran, which is the Quran. We talked about last class. And this is what I wanted to break down. This is what from last class, everyone. When we recite the book of Allah, whose voice is it? It's the voice of the person reciting it. Is it clear? It's the voice of the person reciting it. So keep that in mind with what I'm saying here. I'm going slow for a reason. Last class, we said this. We said that the voice is the voice of who? The reciter. Is that clear? That's good. We said the word ihdath, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech, His speech has what they call ihdath. So let's start from the beginning so I can make this clear to everyone. The speech of Allah is a characteristic of Allah's essence and His action. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always has the ability to speak when He wills, of course, how He wills, to whom He wills. And that's a characteristic of Allah's action. Of Allah's essence, number one. It's a characteristic of Allah's essence. Yes, it is. It's a characteristic of Allah's essence, meaning Allah has the ability to speak. Then you have number two. Number two is that also the speech of Allah is considered His actions. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does it when He wills. He does it when He wills, how He wills, to whom He wills, and at the time He wills. You'll find that Ahl Ilm, that they say that the Kalam Allah is Qadim al-Naw'i, Hadithatul Ahad. That is old in its type, and that it happens from one time to the next. When they say old in its type, meaning it's a characteristic of His essence, and He always has the ability to do it. That's what it means. Is it clear? You'll find that Al-Ilm that they mention to say that the speech of Allah is Qadim al-Naw'i Hadithatul Ahad. Old in its type, which means it's a characteristic of His essence. That Allah has the ability to speak all the time. He has the ability to speak. The ability is always there. Ability is a characteristic of His what? Essence. Allah is able to do all things all the time. There's never a time from the time there is except that Allah always is able to do whatever He wants. From that is His speech. His speech, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability to speak whenever He wills. If Allah wanted to speak now, He could what? He could do it now. However, we will not hear Allah's speech until when? Until the day of resurrection. Is it clear, everyone? So, the speech of Allah and the affairs connected with His essence, we just said, take in consideration the origin of speech and the ability. Is it clear? Number two, the characteristic of speech is a characteristic of His actions. Take in consideration when Allah does it. When Allah does it, at the time He does it, and the words that are used. Is it clear? The words that are used. You'll find that Al-Ilm, they say about His speech, that is Qadim al-Naw'i Hadithatul Ahad. That is old in its type, meaning is from His essence, and is Hadithatul Ahad. And it happens from one time to the next. The speech of Allah happens from one time to the next. That is the ayah that we mentioned, which is in Surah Al-Anbiya. It's in Surah Al-Anbiya. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَأْتِيهِمْ مِنْ ذِكْرٍ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ مُحْدَثٍ إِلَّا اسْتَمَعُوهُ وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ لَاهِيَةً قُلُوبُهُمْ. To the end of the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, there doesn't come to them a remembrance, dhikr, that is muhdath, meaning ihdath. Meaning, remembrance of Allah is what? Revelation. His revelation of the book He sent down is what? Is His speech. Notice Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described His speech as having huduth or ihdath, meaning that Allah sent it down at a time. And we know during the time of the Message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how the revelation was revealed. A certain event would take place, and then what? Revelation descended. Meaning it descended at a specific what? At a specific time. At a time that happened. Based upon the ideologies of the Mu'tazila, those who believe that the Quran was created, they say, no. It didn't happen at a time. It happened already. All at once. It happened, as they say, in the azal. It happened already in the past. Which is confusing. All of the verses in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those verses that were revealed, and you'll find especially the verses that come of what happened with Musa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used those type of words that necessitate a time. For example, lamma, when Musa came to our point of destination or our set time or our appointed time. فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. When Musa came to our appointed time. Notice it said miqatina, miqat, waqt. If you notice in the verse, everyone, which is in Surah Al-A'raf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used those words that necessitate time. When He spoke to Musa, He said, فَلَمَّا وَلَمَّا, when Musa came to the limiqatina, to our set time, and your Lord spoke to him. Meaning that the speech didn't take place until Musa what? Arrived and came in. Makes sense. Didn't happen prior. It happened when he arrived. When he went to that place, Allah what? At that time, spoke to him. Is it clear, everyone? When Musa arrived, that's when Allah spoke to him. Also, if you look into the Qissat al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, when the Message of Allah ﷺ ascended above the heavens, that Jibreel had took him up, and it happened at a time. The time was at night. That night, where Jibreel came, and the Message of Allah ascended above the heavens at a time. And then when he arrived to the seventh heaven, above the seven heavens, Allah spoke to the Prophet ﷺ. What did the Prophet ﷺ hear? He heard the voice of Allah. And he heard what? Letters. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the prayers as an obligation to perform daily until the point where we know that the prayers were established or legislated as how many a day? 50 at one time. Until it says in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ descended to a lower heaven and spoke to Musa. And it said in the hadith, which is in Bukhari, Musa said to him, your ummah cannot handle that. Ask Allah for what? To lighten the burden. Until the Message of Allah went up again, as it says in the hadith. And Allah spoke to him, and they reduced it. Until he went back to Musa again. And Musa said the same thing. Your ummah can't handle it. The point of the matter is that the Message of Allah understood that the affair of the prayer was established as an obligation based upon what the Message of Allah heard from Allah directly, a voice and letters, until the point where he heard, and he descended to the lower heaven, Musa, and Musa said, go back and ask for reduction. Your ummah cannot handle it. So the Message of Allah went up again, asked for the reduction, until it was what? It was reduced to 5. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that I have made my legislation, or I have made my obligation, وَأَمْضَيْتُ فَرِيضَتِي, that now my set obligation and duty for the people has gone forth. until the Messenger of Allah did not want to ask for reduction again, and Musa still wanted to reduce it. He said that I'm shy to ask my Lord for another reduction, which is to let you know that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ heard the voice of Allah, and he understood it and he comprehended it, until the point where he went to Musa, and Musa asked him for the reduction to the end of the ayat. Also, the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said about the affair of what happened with Musa, when Musa also came. He said when he came to the time where he saw the what? The heat that he was seeking. He was seeking heat for his family because it was very cold. And the affair of speech did not what? Take place until he seen that light that emanated from the bush. That affair did not take place until when? Until Musa arrived and came there. That's the reason why we say that the speech of Allah had happened from one time to what? One time to the next. One time to the next. Is it clear, everyone? Right, so that's the reason why we're going to get into these categories. He says, وَمُحْدَث وَكَلَامُ اللَّهِ. Right, so we say that the speech of Allah, قَدِيمَ النَّوْعِ حَادِثَةُ الْأَحَدِ. Old in its type, meaning the ability was always there. Old in its type, meaning the ability was always there. And it happens what? Hadithatul ahad. Happens from one time to the what? To the next. Take in consideration the words that Allah used. The words that Allah used with Prophet Nuh, or the words that Allah used with Prophet Adam, was not the words that Allah used with Prophet Nuh. And the words that was used with Prophet Nuh was not the words that was used with Prophet Ibrahim. All of them happened at different times, and each one was addressed with their own certain speech. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonished Nuh at that time about his son. So Prophet, as you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Prophet Nuh asked him about his affair of his son, where we know that his son rejected the revelation. As it comes in the ayat, he rejected it. And he told him to save him. And you'll find that the Prophet, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonished Nuh. He said, oh, somebody on my phone? No. He said, فَلَا تَسْأَلْنِي عَمَّا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. He said, O Prophet Nuh, do not ask me what you have no knowledge of. Do not ask me about what you have no knowledge of. That speech that Allah used happened at what time, everyone? At the time of Nuh. Is that the same speech that he used with Prophet Adam? No. The speech that Allah used with Prophet Adam went like this. فَنَادَاهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا أَلَمْ أَنْهَكُمَا عَنْ تِلْكُمُ الشَّجَرَةِ وَأَقُلْ لَكُمَا إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمَا عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not speak, or he spoke to Adam, of course warning him before, when he was in paradise, warning him not to what? Be tricked by the devil, right? Like when they ate from the tree, and then they realized their awrah was exposed, their private parts were exposed. That speech that Allah reprimanded or admonishing Adam did not take place till when? After they ate from the tree. And when they realized their what? Their awrah was exposed. When their awrah was exposed and they ate from the tree and their awrah was exposed, Allah called out to them. It says, وَنَادَاهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا. Allah called out to them. Didn't I not prohibit you from eating from the tree? And didn't I not say to you that shaitan is a clear enemy to you? That was speech that was done at a time. The time was when? After they ate from the tree. Based upon the ideologies of the Mu'tazila, that happened already. Doesn't make any sense. It happened in the Azhar. It happened in the beginning, in some dimension, some weird time that they say it happened already. Where Allah does not speak at a time. It happened all at once, which does not make any sense. So Allah spoke to Prophet Adam, Nuh, Ibrahim, Sulaiman, Dawood, Prophet Ibrahim, Isa, and all the other prophets, and the final prophet to all humanity, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, all at once. That does not make any sense. They said that he spoke to them fil azal. Fil azal meaning eternally before all of the creation came to be. In some type of eternal dimension. some other nonsense, which doesn't make absolute any sense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, and He speaks in a manner that befits Him, and that speech takes place at a time. During the time of Prophet Adam, He spoke to Adam, and the things that had happened with Adam, and likewise with Prophet Nuh, and the affairs concerning Prophet Nuh, especially what happened with his son, and the affairs pertaining to Prophet what? Prophet Ibrahim. That the words that He used with him was not like the words He was used with Prophet Nuh, and likewise. Is it clear, everyone? The affairs in what? The speech of Allah. So let's keep going. I'm going to I digress. Right, so it goes on to say, فَكَلَامُ اللَّهِ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. So let's get back to what was the initial affair. The speech of Allah is not created. This word ihdath, everyone, meaning ihdath, we said last class, meaning two things. Ihdath can mean, number one, what, everyone? One of the meanings of the word ihdath, meaning it came into existence after it didn't exist, meaning it was created. That's one category of ihdath. You understand, everyone? The second category of ihdath, the second meaning of ihdath, the second meaning of ihdath is that it happens, something that can happen at a time. It can happen at a time, but it does not mean it's created. It can happen at a time, that addressment, that speech. And that's what I said last class. And when it was revealed. Ihdath of what they call takallumin wa khitabin wa inzal. This is what I mentioned last class. He said the ihdath, what they call of when Allah revealed revelation. When He revealed revelation and He addressed the prophets and He spoke. That type of ihdath does not necessitate what is created, even though it can happen at a specific time. That was the second meaning of ihdath. Is it clear, everyone? Just because it happens at a particular time does not mean it's what? Created. Those are two types of meanings of the word ihdath. So you have ihdath of khalq, which is of the creation, meaning human beings, or the creation if you say in general. Everything that's created is muhdath, but not everything that's muhdath is created. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Everything that's created is muhdath, but not everything that's muhdath is created. Everything that's created, me, you, the dunya, had a time where what? It didn't exist and then it came into existence. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. From that is what? Is the speech of Allah. The speech of Allah can happen from one time to the next, but at the same time, what? It was not created. So not everything, like we said, everything that's created is muhdath. But not everything that's muhdath is what? Jayyid. Is it clear? Everything that's muhdath, everything that's makhluq is muhdath. But not everything that's muhdath is makhluq. I'll read with the great Imam. That's what you'll find, like we said, in the books of Aqidah, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, or matter of fact, when Allah revealed His book, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it, and when he revealed the final revelation, was the Quran, that revelation didn't take place until when? A time. When the message of Allah came, Allah sent down the revelation. The revelation, the final revelation to all humanity happened at a time. Is it clear, everyone? It happened at a time. In addition to when the message of Allah ﷺ heard the voice of Allah, also that happened at a what? It happened at a time. And when the message of Allah ﷺ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the message of Allah, all these affairs happened at a what? At a time. And that was the dhikr of Allah that Allah sent down, that over the period of duration of His prophethood, is how the revelation descended. All of that as was considered when everyone, that was all considered a what? At a time. That the revelation descended over a period of how many years? Years is what, everyone? Time. It's clear. All of these matters you'll find that Ahl Sunnah, what they laid down, it's clear. The revelation descended over a period of years. What are years, everyone? Time. It's time. So that makes sense. The affairs of the people of Bid'ah does not make any sense. Those affairs are confusing. Those are the affairs that cause doubt in the Muslim. Those are the affairs that will inevitably make you apostate. And that you are, or you'll just be Muslim with doubt in your chest. Because you just believe something, I don't understand it, nor do I accept it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't speak. That causes doubt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not speak with voice or so on the day of resurrection, when Allah brings everyone close, individually, bringing everyone specifically, all of us, without any exception, Allah is going to bring you close and show you your record and speak to you and talk to you about everything you believe and all of the filthy things that the human beings did. You mean to tell me that He's not going to speak with a speech and you're not going to understand? Or is it going to be metaphoric and Allah's going to put it in your head? Doesn't make any sense. It's clear. Allah will come on the day of resurrection and He's going to address every human being with a speech they clearly understand. With voice and what, everyone? Letters. See, the aqeedah of the Sunnah is clear. There's no nonsense about metaphorically Allah is going on the day of resurrection, bring you and put some weird voice in your head and then you will understand the record. That's absolute nonsense. There's no dalil for that. Not in the kitab, nor in the Sunnah. There isn't any. So stop with the nonsense. Stick to what's clear. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, it comes to Bukhari in the Sahihain. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring everyone close to them and make them realize what they've done in this world. وَلَا يَكُونْ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُمَا تَرْجُمَانِ. Where he said that Allah's speech will be so clear to all of us individuals. He said to the point you will not need a translator to translate. It's an hadith. You won't even need a translator to translate to what Allah is going to say to all of us individually about the reckoning and the record of deeds that will be what? Held over to individual and the accountability that will take place. The hadith even says clearly in the narration, لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ تَرْجُمَانِ. You won't need any translator that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say on the day of resurrection when He brings every human being to account. Which is to let you know that what? That the speech of Allah will be what? Clear. It will be done with voice. It will be done with what? Letters. G. So that's in regards to what that particular explanation that we just said. And matter of fact, let me just read quickly what Shaykh Muhammad Aman says. He said, كل مخلوق يقال له حادث ولكن الله قد يحدث بعض الأشياء وبعض مفردات كلامه بدون خلق ولكن إحداث تكلم وخطاب وإنزال. كل مخلوق حادث وليس كل حادث مخلوق. The great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Aman, he said, it's said that everything created, it's said that it's hadith, meaning that it started at a particular time where it didn't exist and then it came to what? Existence. So every makhluk is what? Hadith. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bring about an affair at a particular time, certain things, and certain words of His speech without it being created. However, that type of huduth or ihdath is of speech, addressment, and revelation. Everything created is hadith, that it had a beginning, after it did not what? Exist, and then it existed. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. Is it clear, everyone? G.
One particular, like the speech of Allah, you talk about that's not created, but everything else is. But that's the only one when you say that everything is that is created, but everything
is created, started at a particular time, after it didn't exist, and then existed. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. Not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. From that is Allah's speech, His revelation, his addressment to the prophets, and him speaking to them. Because we all say and we believe that Allah's speech, that it happened at a time. The problem with the Mu'tazila is they could not get out of their minds that something that happens from one time to the next, how can that not be created? That's the reason why they said that Allah's speech is what? Created. That's why they fell into it. That was one of the reasons. They can't get past the meaning. You mean to tell me that Allah spoke to the prophets at a specific time with specific words in a specific addressment, and revelation descended over a period of time, over different prophets, different books? Yes. What's wrong with that? It's simple logic. It is simple logic. What's wrong with that? Allah can't do that? You're trying to say Allah's not able to do what He wants? Doesn't make any sense. Allah can't reveal affairs to certain books, to different prophets, different legislations for different prophets at different times, where the origin of the revelation was one, which is Tawheed. However, certain legislations were slightly different according to that ummah, as we already know. For example, sujood. Sujood, during the early parts of revelation, was just a means to show honor to someone. Didn't necessitate worship. It was permissible to prostrate, to show honor or thanks. For example, if you look what happened in the story of Yusuf, it's right there. Then you'll find that his brothers and his father and them prostrated to Yusuf. It says it's right there. And you'll find who also prostrated to Adam. The angels did. The angels prostrated to Adam, which is to let you know that worship at one time, in regards to sujood, it was a form of to show honor, and that thing was something special about it, or thanks. However, in the final revelation or the final legislation, sujood is it's a form of worship. You can't make sujood to anyone except Allah. You understand, everyone? So the origin of all the prophets in Tawheed was one. However, some of the legislations were everyone? Slightly different. But also in regards to the affairs of Aqidah, they were unified. From them is that Allah deserved to be worshipped. From them is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes and the belief in them. From them is Allah is above. From them is that they believe that Allah speaks with a voice and letters. From them is that revelation. And from the revelation of Allah's speech is His books that He revealed. And the only book that is intact that Allah revealed to this day, and the only book that is still intact, that's still in its original language, because you'll notice that every student of knowledge who has knowledge of a book of Allah quotes it exactly how it was revealed before they say it, to let you know that the book is still in its original form. And those other books that was revealed previously have all been corrupted. And the only final book you'll find that you'll all over the dunya, that you'll find that the majority of people speak in its original language before it was revealed, and how it was revealed before they translate it is is the Quran. Is it clear, everyone? Jayid. Fine, so let's keep going. It said, وَالْوَارِثُ لِخَلْقِهِ لِأَنَّهُ الْبَاقِي بَعْدَ فَنَاءِ خَلْقِهِ إِلَّا مَا أَبْقَاهُ اللَّهُ بِمَشِيئَتِهِ وَأَرَادَ بَقَاءَهُ كَالْجَنَّةِ وَنَعِيمِهَا وَالنَّارِ وَعَذَابِهَا. So now he goes on to say, Amr ibn Uthman Makki, the Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say in his book that he says, وَالْوَارِث لِخَلْقِهِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inherit to His creation, meaning from the revelation, al-warith li khalqi, everyone, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the only one left after the creation has ended. And creation is ended, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remain after the creation has become decimated, except who Allah will allow to remain by His will, and who He will allow remain, such as everyone. As we know, this whole world will be destroyed. This dunya, everything will be done. However, when the people take their final abode in the hereafter, what He will allow to remain is Paradise, and its bliss, and its inhabitants, and the hellfire, and its torture, and its inhabitants. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us and you refuge from that. Right. So then he goes on to say, السميع لأصواتهم. What time is it? I'm sorry. What time is it? It came in already? What time is it, everyone? Oh, it just came in? Oh, you want to call it, Jihad? Hold on. Concerned about with that. Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks, to love you, God. Shano la ilaha illallah. Shano la ilaha.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة.
حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر.
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والبعث المقام محمود الذي وعده. طيب, you find that Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki, we almost finish everyone. He says, As-sami'u li aswatihim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the voices of the people. That Allah is Sami', that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He hears everything. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the characteristic of Sama', characteristic of hearing. And He hears the voices of His servants, what they utter, what they speak. That characteristic is a characteristic of Allah's essence. When we say essence, everyone, meaning Allah always has that characteristic. Meaning there's not a time from the time except Allah always hears everything. Is it clear, everyone? Allah hears everything. There's never a time where the person would think there's a deficiency, or oh, he didn't hear that. No, that's only for the human beings, or for the creation. For the creation, their characteristic of hearing is at a certain boundary, and it stops. As far as Allah hears everything. And we have ayats in the book of Allah that gives this affair or substantiates this matter. But anyway, let's keep going. الناظر بعينه إلى أجسادهم, that Allah looks by His eyes, meaning Allah, He has two eyes that befit Him, and He looks and He sees the actions of the human beings, or the bodies of the human beings, meaning their actions, of course, and their bodies. Allah sees their bodies, what they do. The word ayn in the book of Allah, you'll find that it comes, and this is what we'll talk about next class, the word ayn, which means eye. It comes in the book of Allah in three ways. You'll find there's a ayat that comes in a manner which is mufrada, that is in singular form. Jinsul ayn, that it comes in singular form. And you'll find that also that it comes in the plural form. This is what we're going to talk about next class, don't worry. For example, the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Qamar, تَجْرِي بِأَعْيُنِنَا, that the boat of Nuh, that it was flowing by our eyes. So it came to what? Plural form. Eyes. What? And then it comes also in the book of Allah, At-Tathniyah, where it was what? That it was made in two, or they call dual form. Dual means two, which has also been extracted from the Sunnah, not from the Quran. Rather, the two eyes are from the Sunnah. So you'll find that it comes in the singular form in the Quran, Ayn, which is the singular form. As they say, beloved ifrad, the singular wording or the singular form, which indicates, like one would think, that is one eye, but that's not the case. So we'll talk about this next class. And it came in the book of Allah in the plural form. And that we'll talk about that next class, because it's going to take some time for us to break it down. And then you'll find in the authentic Sunnah, where the Prophet ﷺ talked about the one-eyed liar who's called the Antichrist. who will come. When he's coming in Allah's best way, the dunya is becoming so corrupt, you'll find that that's where everything is going. Where everything is being set up for his release soon. Especially the level of corruption that we see all around the world now. In communities and within societies. On so many levels, whether it be social, economical, whether it be economic ways or social, so many ways are where people are being tested. Even in their physical, health-wise, everything. You'll find that things are collapsing or things have reached a very critical point. Taymiyyah. I'll read that after we close the class out. Somebody sent me a question, I'll read it after we finish. So, the thing of the affairs are being set for the Dajjal, his release. So the Prophet ﷺ gave us great clarity to recognize your Lord. What did he say? Inna rabbakum laysa bi'a'war. Your Lord is not one-eyed. We said, wa inna Dajjal la'a'wul al-'ayn al-yumna. Verily the Dajjal, that he has what? One right eye. كَأَنَّهَا عِنَبَةٌ طَافِيَةٌ Or كَأَنَّ عَيْنَهُ عِنَبَةٌ طَافِيَةٌ As if one of his eyes is what? Is protruding and sticking out. So, but however, based upon this narration, the Prophet ﷺ was affirming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has what? Two eyes. By affirming that the Dajjal only has what? One. Is it clear? And that will be from the great signs that when he comes, to know no matter what he comes with of decorated speech, because we know from the Dajjal, from his abilities, he will be given decorated speech. And he'll be able to decorate his speech so well, to the point where a believer will come to him, thinking he's firm, and by the time he's finished with him, he'll become from his followers. That a mu'min will come to him and try to argue with him, and he will spin the lights out of him and decorated falsehood until the point where he become from his followers. So that would be from his abilities he would be given, is to what? Decorate speech to make it very alluring and embellish until the point that individual will be affected and he will take him as his Lord. However, the message of Allah ﷺ clearly mentioned here and said that your Lord is not what? He's not one eye. You'll find that as an ilm extracted from that benefit, from this hadith in the sunnah, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has two what? He has two eyes that prevent him. Based upon that he negated for the Dajjal of having two eyes, rather he only has what? One eye. Is it clear, everyone? However, there's other narrations that if I had time we will get into a little bit more about the characteristic of the Dajjal. But however, that is the authentic hadith to show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has what, everyone? Two eyes. And that will stop here. So all those different forms that we speak about the singular form, the dual form, and the plural form, we'll talk about that next class. There's a question here. It said, when you say created, do you mean created by man? The Prophet ﷺ made it up. I don't understand the question. It says, when you say created, she's talking about, I think she's speaking about the speech of Allah. Now the people of the Mu'tazila, they believe that Allah's speech is created, meaning it was created by Allah. That his speech is created by Allah. Not created by man. Created by Allah. I think that's the question she's asking. So the question is, they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he created his what? He created his own speech. If you get into the misguidance of what they believe basically that Allah doesn't speak. Basically, Allah created something and that thing spoke for Allah. And it were expressed for Allah, or it translated for Allah, or that thing is the thing that conveyed for Allah. So it's something that Allah created. And that thing is the one that expressed for Allah or conveyed what Allah wanted, or what Allah intended, or what Allah wanted to speak to, or what Allah wanted to address.
That almost like a form of tashbih, right?
Form of what again? Tashbih? Absolutely.
Because thinking about like royalness and having their
Absolutely.
having someone to speak for them.
Exactly. So they try to flee away from it, so they say Allah created something in the air and that thing expressed for Allah.
question, but
Hold on, no, good. We got like 3 more minutes.
it's not even from the class. It's from a class prior.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was talking about how as Muslims we can get our bodies cremated.
No.
And what was the hadith you brought up, and something about someone trying to get there to ashes, basically to try to deny
The qudra of Allah.
Exactly.
His ability.
The ability.
No, what happened is the hadith, that's the hadith that the ulama used, they use that narration to show clearly. That narration right there is to show, that's one of the narrations that are the authentic narrations that are used to say that a person is excused due to their ignorance. Muslim. Basically, the hadith says of what happened with one of the people, Bani Israel, which comes in the Sahih, comes in Bukhari. It's in there, it's authentic. Where that individual said that his fear of Allah, he said that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if he gets me, then he will punish me a punishment that he has not punished anyone from the alameen, from the creation. So he says, so gather me when I die, burn me, create me, and scatter my ashes. Right? So the man, his intention was what?
To try to flee from the punishment.
Exactly. To flee from the punishment. But he had fear of Allah. So his affair was to fear Allah, right? So that affair, that hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him back. Even though he was burnt to ashes and his ashes were scattered. Allah still brought everything back. And he asked him, what made you do that? He said, out of fear of you. Out of fear of you. However, you'll find that one of the benefits we extract from here is when he brought him back, he denied an affair that was ma'loom min ad-deen bid-darura. That was something that was established that every Muslim is supposed to know, that Allah is what? Able to do all things. That he should have known Allah has complete ability to do what he wants, right? Despite of that, Allah forgave him. Forgave him due to his what? His ignorance. Because it says in the hadith, he clearly what? He forgave him. Why? Because he wanted to do it out of fear. Not because he wanted to do it because he wanted to now show Allah doesn't have the ability. Is it clear? That's number one. Number two, the hadith clearly shows that what? He got cremated. They burnt him and scattered his ashes, which is to let you know that it's not permissible to what? It's not permissible to what? It's not permissible to cremate. Is it clear, everyone? But that hadith, you'll find that al-ilm utilized, even Shaykh al-Islam has a whole bath on it. He has a whole research paper on it saying that narration is to show, one of the greatest narrations to show how a Muslim, especially from the Muslims that have been affected by the people of innovation, that it does not necessitate their out the fold of Islam. For example, you'll find it in Muslim countries, like for example in Egypt, and certain countries such as even Pakistan and other places, that they believe it's permissible to grave worship, especially the Sufis, from the extremists from amongst them. So now we're going to go and say, all these Muslims, you see these Muslims right there, that's around the grave, or make a dua to the grave, all of them are kuffar. Are you going to say that? All of them are kuffar. And you'll find that there's a good percentage of them, especially in Egypt, that nobody's going to deny the fact that is what they're doing is an act of kufr. That would nullify your Islam. Nobody's denying that. But that's the general rule. Of course, them making sujood or them making dua to the dead, that nullifies your Islam. That's an act of kufr. Nobody's denying that. But are we going to go now and say that they're all kuffar? No. Why? Because you'll find that they use that hadith to say that they excuse due to their ignorance, in addition to that the shubha, the doubtful matters that they've been led astray by the scholars that they trust, that misled them. So from the shubha that they were misled by is what they call ulama as-su, the scholars of evil. The scholars of evil told them, oh no, there's nothing wrong with that. That's tawheed. That's not shirk. Don't listen to those Wahhabis. Don't listen to them. That what you're doing is Ayn Tawheed. What you're doing that exactly is Tawheed. So not realizing that act is an act of what? Polytheism. It's an act of polytheism, clearly. So that's the reason why we don't go to these countries and start now saying, look at all these kuffar. We say that they're what? Excused due to what? Ignorance. In addition to that, they have a shubha. They have an ambiguity they've been affected by, that they were misled by those scholars of evil that implanted their ideologies in them until they became misled by it. Is it clear? So not for you to go to Egypt and say, see, look at all these kuffar here. You see these people? These are all kuffar. Yeah, you can't say that. You understand, everyone? Can't say that. Oh, look at these people out here. You see all the niggas who do to the dead, you can kuffar, all of them. Need to take shahada over again. Yeah, you understand? So we'll stop here, inshallah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك